Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. When do you pay off a mortgage? It seems like it would be a real simple answer where we look at what's the best use of capital. This is something I get from the lumberjack landlord. Where can I put my money to its best use? So we would think that the simple answer is if my interest rate on my mortgage is 4%, that I could get a 10% return by buying another rental. So it would be dumb to pay off my mortgage. But that's not my answer. That's the simple math. It's a little more complex like that because there is an actual chronology to investing. And so you need to know the phase that you're in and what your goal is. So when we're in growth phase, this is almost the same no matter what the goal is. We learn to save. We fix our credit. We talk to a lender to find out what our options are. We choose a strategy. We develop our funnels to find our rentals or the assets that we invest in if you're going for stocks, or you channel all your money into growing your business. But in this case, we're talking mortgage. When do you pay off the mortgage? It isn't about the return. In the beginning, it's about the phase that you're in. If you are in growth phase, where you are trying to acquire as many cash flowing assets as you can. And when we're in that phase, generally, it's the only phase we think exists. We don't think, where's my mic way over there? We don't think eventually the future might be different. So hello, Futureland, it's different. When I was growing my portfolio, I thought my goal was to get to 10 mortgages. Originally, you were only allowed to have 4 mortgages in your name, and I wasn't very educated. I didn't know that DSCR loans, asset-based lending, or that sometimes seller financing might be the better option to go than a conventional loan, which is the best interest rate on 30-year fixed rate debt that I thought existed. In the teens, 2010 to 2020, 2018-ish, you were allowed to have 4 mortgages in your name because the world was recovering from the 2008 housing crash and lending fear was through the roof. So I got to 4 mortgages. Looking back now, I never would have paid off a mortgage. But here's how I looked at it and why I paid off a mortgage when I was at 4. I figured banks, large lending institutions, had very smart people running them, smarter than me. It's not that hard to do. I'm just sitting over here with a PhD, public high school diploma. So I figured educated people knew the risks better and thought 4 was a good metric to go with. I didn't realize it was because the lenders, had done such poor lending in 2005 to 2008 with ninja loans, lending more than the asset was worth, with wrapping the closing costs in at a 100% mortgage loan, like all of the things that caused the crash. So I got to 4. This was a single family house I bought before I was an investor, and I purchased 3 duplexes. I got to that 4th one. I used a combination of the debt snowball and the avalanche method of paying off debt. It was my highest interest rate and my lowest amount of loan. So I paid off the single family house. Looking back, it's kind of a mistake at the time, because I could have got a better return by buying a property than paying off my 6% mortgage at the time, which is why one of the reasons why I chose to pay it off is it was a 6% mortgage. It's not just 6% that you add to your cash flow. So if I was out of growth phase and in preservation phase, where I'm trying to maintain my portfolio and don't really care about growing it, I might have paid it off, but I wasn't yet. I was barely financially independent, not quite financially free. There's a huge difference. So it was a bad thing to do, but I paid off the mortgage and then I added more. And my goal mentally was to get to 10 mortgages. And I thought, well, once I get to 10, maybe then I'll pay one off, add another, pay one off, add another. I don't think I'm actually going to get to 10 mortgages because the income snowball kicked in. And not only am I looking at the chronology of am I in growth phase versus am I in preservation phase, but what's your goal? My goal was financial freedom. I talk about being the lazy investor. If I ever, because I'm so lazy, get around to writing a book, it's going to be the lazy person's path to financial freedom. And people say, there's no way you're lazy, you do so much. I'm like, I did a lot to get to the point where I can literally sit around the last couple of days and play World of Warcraft. Like that was the top of my list of things to do. Absolutely wasting time. That's lazy. But now I'm in preservation mode. I don't want my portfolio to grow. I have 16 rental units. I'm not even sure. I've said this before. I'm not even sure I want 16. I might want to sell one to pay off debt. So in growth mode, I would say never pay off a mortgage. Have your tenants do it. I would take 1,000-year mortgages if I was in growth phase, because my goal was not to have a paid off property. It was to purchase an asset that produced cash flow. So it would seem like if I would take 1,000-year mortgages, I have the mindset that you never pay off a mortgage. This changes based on two things. One, what phase are you in, growth or preservation? And two, what is your goal? If your goal is to be the next Michael Zuber of one rental at a time and have hundreds of units, or the next lumberjack landlord and have over 100 units, you're probably not going to want to ever pay off mortgages. You might actually recycle capital and add home equity line of credits, or do a cash out refinance. And with interest rates where they are right now, I would do a second. I wouldn't touch the existing mortgage. So you're actually going to create more debt on a property before you pay it off, because best use of capital is buying another cash flowing asset and increasing your cash flow, getting more appreciation and principal pay down, and being in that growth phase. If you're in preservation phase, this is where I'm at. I don't think we're in preservation phase for most people. Even if you decide, okay, I'm going to start going into preservation mode, that doesn't mean pay off mortgages, unless you have, I would guess, 4 times your freedom number in cash flow, making work completely optional. For me, it's somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000, fluctuating on the month on what I spend. So we say an average of $4,000 a month. So I would need $12,000 to have 3 times, $16,000 to have 4 times. So I have about $17,000 a month in cash flow, pure profit after principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and setting aside money for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. So I'm above that, where I might be in preservation mode. I have enough money to pay off a mortgage or two. I could sell a property and pay off a mortgage or two. I haven't done it yet. I don't know that even then is the right time to pay off a mortgage, because I was investing for cash flow to buy financial freedom, and I've acquired that. While I don't really want to add property, so paying off debt might be the right path to go, I have 3 kids, and they are going to inherit my portfolio. And it's not that much more work to manage 18 or 20 units than it is to manage 16. And eventually, I'm probably going to go with a property manager, even lessening my workload. Lower than 2 hours. It's probably going to stay about the same, 2 hours a month to manage a property manager or manage my properties. So in growth mode, I would never pay off a mortgage using fixed rate debt. If you have an adjustable rate mortgage or something like a balloon payment coming up, which I talked about with the lumberjack landlord on his channel earlier today, or on Millennial Mike's channel, that video should be coming out soon, because the 3 of us were doing to the REI Avengers. Maybe then I would take care of debt. Myself, I would never purchase a loan product that had a balloon payment or an adjustable rate or a loan reevaluation period. It's one of the reasons why all of my deals so far are from the MLS with traditional lending, all conventional loans. I like simple. Doesn't mean I don't want to do seller financing, but if I do, it's not going to have something like a balloon payment or an adjustable rate. It will be 30 or 40-year fixed rate debt. So that could be one of the routes that I go with. If you're in preservation mode, here's when I think you could pay off your mortgage. You have at least 4 times your freedom number coming in cash flow that you don't have to sell your life for 1 hour at a time. You don't want to add more work to your workload. And you want a swan account. You want to sleep well at night. You want more peace, more buffer between the money coming in and the money going out. To me, there's no benefit to having a mortgage paid off. It actually increases your risk of loss due to a lawsuit. You're just as likely to get sued whether you have it paid off or not. But if you have a mortgage on a property, the bank is in first position, so it's a form of asset protection. If you're not in growth phase, so the rule for me is in growth phase, I would say never pay off a mortgage. You should always be saving capital for the next purchase. And if you're like Michael Zuber and Lumberjack Landlord, actually adding debt to your existing assets to acquire more with home equity line of credit, cash out refinance, or sometimes just selling the 1031. So you're literally moving all that debt to the new property. If you're in preservation phase, don't pay off mortgages until you have a multiplier of 4 times your freedom number. And you don't want any more rentals, because if you pay off a property, you do increase your cash flow more than the percentage of the mortgage. A lot of people think, if I have a 5% mortgage and I pay it off, that's 5% more I'm going to get next year. It's actually more than that. You're going to get the 5% that you were paying in interest plus the principal pay down. Principal pay down and interest payments starts going to your cash flow at that point. You still have taxes, insurance, repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. So those expenses don't go away. Are you in preservation phase? Do you have 4 times your freedom number coming in cash flow? At that point, I teeter on the fence up. I could pay off a mortgage. I don't have any mortgages currently above 5%. So maybe if I buy the next one and it's at 6 or 7%, it starts to look like that's the one I'd want to pay off. But if I have a mortgage under 5% and inflation is 8%, it makes absolutely no sense to pay that off. The tenants will pay it off over a long enough period of time. But what was your goal? Was your goal financial freedom, or was your goal to own paid off assets? Because that means nothing to me. Like I said in the middle of this video, I would do a 1,000-year mortgage because I'm buying cash flow. I'm not buying paid off properties. I actually don't like having the one paid off property that I do. When I got to 4 and focused and paid one off, that is an unprotected asset. There is no bank in first position if I ever get sued. That is an asset at risk. I still have my 3 forms of asset protection on all the other properties. The first one being homeowners insurance on each property, an umbrella policy on me in case there's a lawsuit that goes above the $300,000 injury for one of the properties. Then the umbrella kicks in. Second is all of the other properties have a mortgage, so there's the bank in first position. And the third one, the most important form of asset protection to me, is actually fixing stuff. Right? Don't ignore your tenants' complaints. Take care of things. Anything safety and sensitive and gets done immediately. So I wish there was a really simple answer of what phase are you in? What's your goal? Is it a better ROI? That's the one that almost everyone always starts with, is what's the best use of capital? But that takes out what phase are you in and what's your goal? What is the interest rate? If you have a mortgage at 3% interest, I don't know that there's ever a time where it makes sense to pay that off. But if you have a mortgage at 8% and interest rates go up, so you can't refinance to a better rate, and you are in preservation phase and you have multiples of your cash flow, now it might make sense to pay off that mortgage. So someday there might be a simple explanation to when to pay off your mortgage, but not today. I was making a video to put out separately before I get to the howdies and hellos today. So my goal today is that we get through as many questions as we can. I really like these live streams. There's a lot of subjects I would make a video on that I care about. And there's a few that you guys care about. But when you ask questions, I then know what topics to cover. In the last week, I think I've seen 4 or 5 comments of when do you pay off a mortgage? That sparked the whole idea of the topic for this live stream. But that doesn't mean that all these videos are going to be about when to pay off a mortgage. It can be any real estate, financial freedom, maybe parenting, but not dating, advice that you think I can give you. So, howdy, Chester. I hope you guys are doing great. So Dion's going to answer it in the monologue portion. I'd say short answer is ask yourself, could I have earned a higher return on my money by investing instead of paying off the mortgage off? Yep, that's the question I think everybody thinks, and then you look at the other 2. What phase are you in, and what's your goal? The answer to that question dictates whether to invest the principal and use the returns to pay down the mortgage, or whether to use the money to pay off the mortgage. All-Nighter Hider agrees with Chester. Nice. Dividend Dave, howdy. All-Nighter Hider, howdy. Financial Firefighter, Mark, aloha. Janet, hello everybody, how are you? I am almost marvelous. Doing better than I deserve, Janet. So that's a Dave Ramsey fan. Nice. Who does have good advice. I know we pick on him because if it wasn't for debt, I would have to work. Like, that's terrifying for me. So I'm not anti-debt. He's got 3 awesome steps. The first 2 and the 7th, if you can put those in any investing strategy, I think you'll be great. It's the stuff in the middle where we diverge. Amafid, howdy. You can't qualify safety and security. My home will be paid off in 10 months. Nice. So you're in maybe preservation mode and you have cash flow to support the idea that you paid off a mortgage instead of putting the money to work somewhere else. But there's no right answer. There's no one way to invest in real estate, but there is a one way for you, right? That quote. Nice. Michelle, howdy. I think you're the Michelle I missed in California. I wish we'd got a chance to connect. My week got away from me. Bill, howdy. Janet, please tell us cons and pros to pay off the mortgage. Yeah, so paying it off means you lose a form of asset protection. You do have a sense of security for that sleeping well at night. I don't like having that property paid off because it's an unprotected asset. I do like the idea, and lumberjack landlord hates it. He calls it dead equity. I'm getting a great cash on cash return. I owed $121,000 on the house when I decided to pay it off. It's worth about $400,000. So if I'm making more than $12,100 a year, I'm getting better than a 10% cash on cash return. But I would make $40,000 a year if I get a 10% on the entire amount. $40,000 to get a 10% cash on cash return. So I'm getting a terrible cash on equity return, and I think I'm profiting $1,800 in profit a month times 12. So whatever that is, a lot, but not 10% on the full amount of the equity. So all of last year, towards the end of 2021, before interest rates jacked up, Zuber and lumberjack landlord both tried to politely peer pressure me into doing a cash out refinance on that house and getting money that I could put to work at 3% and then buy another property. It was great advice, but I wasn't in growth mode anymore, and I wanted the preservation phase. So since I had paid it off when we can only get to 4, I had already made that decision, and then I educated myself and found out there was all these better options out there than paying off a mortgage. I didn't take out the cash. And so Matt and Zuber have actually kind of jokingly laughed at me saying, well, you had all this capital, you could have put to work. But if I had a mortgage on that house, there's a chance I'd still be working. Like that would have impacted my cash flow enough to where I wouldn't have had over 4 times my freedom number, like comfortably over 4 times my freedom number, unless I found another property to put the money to work in, which I haven't. May of 2021 was the last time I closed on a property. There's a big difference between investing when you're at 10 and 12 years and financially free versus when you're starting. If I was still in growth mode, there's probably 3 deals that I have passed on to friends and helped them acquire that I would have got myself. I want to be nice, but it's easier when I'm not hunting for property so much. Tom, howdy. You made it. You woke up. You didn't sleep in late. Levi, howdy. REI Stoners, all right. Nice little channeling your inner Conahey. Travis, howdy. Matt, Laura, Tony Carr, howdy. Hope everybody's doing good. How will the lender look at your debt to income ratio when buying the second property? So that's a great question. I'm trying to think of the easiest way to put it into words because I've talked about this in a couple of videos. The hardest part about starting investing in real estate with your debt to income ratio is the first 2 years. You need to make enough money and have the reserves and have the work history to justify the mortgages that you acquire in those first 2 years based on your income, unless you go asset-based, non-QM. If you're not doing conventional loans in your name, there are other ways to do it where it's based on the income of the property. But it's easier after you have rental income on your tax returns for 2 years. That's the main reason I moved in from a house into an apartment for 2 years and rented out my house. I needed to get rental income on my tax returns so that my debt to income ratio and my income almost meant nothing. The lenders basically said, you can borrow any amount that you want that you can save the down payment for. So debt to income becomes less important after 2 years because they're going to look at 75% of rental income in your debt to income ratio, which should, if you're buying the right kind of properties, cover the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And the follow-up question is usually, so last year I had 6 figures of profit, right? Of real estate profit, but I carried forward an $8,900 loss. So how does it look like you could buy more property with depreciation and write-off, making it to where we don't pay any taxes on rental income? Lenders take out the depreciation on your tax returns to calculate what the rental income is according to the debt to income ratio of the whole package. Some lenders will actually add another little caveat at the end there of, in order to recognize 75% of the rents, including the rents on the property that you're purchasing, you have to have at least 3 months remaining on what they call the majority of your leases. So 51% or more of your leases that you have in place have to have 3 months or more remaining. It kind of eliminates short-term rentals, and it makes month-to-month leases very unattractive to me. So get through the first 2 years, and then life gets a lot easier. It's a vetting process. Kind of like dating. It's vetting. Don't just date tomorrow because you dated yesterday. If you don't like it, stop doing it. And lenders look at it the same way. If you can't survive 2 years, finding tenants, screening tenants, maintaining a property, keeping it safe, then they're not going to want to invest more with you, right? So you have to prove that you're a safe bet with those 2 years by showing consistently that you can collect rents, that you can find a tenant, that you can put leases in place. It's a great question. Then my chat moved, which is great because that means there's questions, which I appreciate. We went to the One Rental at a Time live event last week, the weekend before last. And the biggest fear in a live event is it's audience driven, right? We did not have presentations. We had no PowerPoint. Kind of had a thing, I was with Millennial Mike, and either one of us could talk for 5 hours on pick a subject, right? So we were fine, but the biggest fear is that you go into a room and there aren't questions. So luckily there were a bunch of questions. So I appreciate it when there's questions in live streams because it's kind of the same thing. Ronald, howdy. I'll let it hide her. Don't forget to watch that Taufledermist channel too. It's a nice word. Thanks to you for making me say the hard word. Todd, howdy. Good point with the kids and passing on assets. Yes. So even though I'm not in growth mode to grow my portfolio for more freedom, once you have the multiple of your freedom number, I don't think that there's like a more free. I wouldn't go buy, I could just go buy a Lamborghini for cash, but I'm not going to go buy 5, right? Yeah. But your kids are going to inherit, and currently there's like a $5 million or less no inheritance tax that can change depending on who's in office. But the more that they inherit, even with taxes, if it ends up hitting that threshold, the more that they have to work with. Angel R, hit that like button. I like having the taxes escrowed. I escrow the taxes on everything with a mortgage. I don't pay any of myself, but the one that's paid off is automated. So the insurance literally takes like $28 a month, and taxes automatically comes out, and I usually forget until it goes out and I'm like, oh yeah, that's this month. It's like April and October. It just automatically deducts from my account. So I don't think about it. It's kind of like having a escrow, but I keep the money in the account for it. So that, because I have memory issues, I don't want to be responsible for paying a bill because I'd forget. Todd, Dion, you're a great investing example. Thank you. I just need enough units to be financially free. I don't need hundreds of units. Thanks for all you do. Thank you. Yeah. So, and I don't know that I would have said that when I was starting out. I probably would have said, hell, 6 months ago, I probably would have said, I'm going to work until I die because I love my job. And then 3 months ago, I said, I'm out of here because I love my job and had a great day. And I thought, quit at the top of your game. I probably last year would have said, you just continue to invest, keep adding cash flowing properties, and then I've had a complete mental shift on what's important. And for me, unit count is not important. Like I would be comfortable saying I have 12 units or 14 units instead of 16 if I sold it and paid the debt to increase cash flow to add to my stability. But that would be taking away from my kids' inheritance, so I'm not doing that. Unless they talk back some more, then I might think about it. But one of the reasons why I really like the Three Amigos is, and the REI Avengers, the 4 of us, like Millennial Mike too, and Lumberjack Landlord and Zuber, very different ways of doing this. Zuber is very hands-off, very recycle capital, add units, add cash flow. Lumberjack Landlord is very hands-on, self-managed, rehabs. Like I still haven't done a rehab. I've done flooring, paint. I've helped people with rehabs, gone in and helped them tear out cabinets and everything, not on my own properties, but Matt does that all the time. So that's why if I ever do a course, it's never going to include, here's how you do a rehab. It's going to say, here's the link to the Lumberjack Landlords channel where he does product reviews on how to do rehabs. Mine is how to find cash flowing properties on the MLS that don't need rehabs, that get the tenants to request a rent increase, and make it, very simple, very easy. And Millennial Mike doing out of state investing on a cop salary and reaching financial freedom. Like, that's what I like about this is Zuber and Lumberjack don't go, Dion, you really could grow some more units. They go, hey, your unit count, your cash flow is accomplishing your goals. Good deal, done, right? Like, we have the different ways of doing it. And I think each one of us offers something for all the different investing strategies that could be used. So thanks, Todd. I hope it's helping. Sebastian, howdy. Anyone wants to chat about an exciting deal they're working on? So I see you remember, Sebastian, we're going to be doing, depending on what happens this Friday, a members only live stream. Like we've done the ones where I go through, and this is the emails I'm getting from my agents, how I'm looking, how I judge my market, how I run the numbers, all that kind of stuff. And then we did Dividend Dave's where we looked at his market. We did that. We're going to be talking current deals people have in action on a Zoom, probably this Friday. I'm trying to do 2 members only live streams a month on Fridays. Last one was on a Saturday, but life happens. Michelle, Northwest here, with winter coming, do you have an alternative heat source on a property with just electric heat or gas with electric? I do not. Most of my units have baseboard heat and space heaters. So electricity is really the only option. It doesn't really get cold here like it does in Siberia. I mean, where Matt, the Lumberjack landlord, invests, where if you get locked outside your house, you could die. So I haven't had any issues here. I do have some units that have fireplaces, and I redact them. I don't take them out. I board them off, right? So that's not even an option for heat. It's just never been an option. Never been a problem here in Washington. I remember in the 90s, there was a massive snowstorm that really took over places way before I was an investor. And I didn't start investing until way after that. People would go to restaurants and hang out until 10 o'clock at night and then go home and bundle up and sleep until they went to school or work the next morning. You can survive here even in the coldest temperatures. So good question, but I haven't had to do anything. And I have 2 units, 2 places that have gas heat. And I hate it. I don't know. I just grew up with all the movies of there's always a gas explosion. I've never heard of an electric explosion, but it's probably not good. All nighter hider. If your mortgage rate is below the rate of inflation, then maybe keep that mortgage as you're getting paid the difference to borrow. Right. You're getting paid the difference. The whole reason that the federal government, the government wants inflation is because of all the debt. What's it, $30 trillion in debt? If there's inflation, it becomes easier to pay off debt that's already exists because it's with less valuable money to pay off the numbers. So yeah, with inflation, that debt becomes an asset. REI Stoners, I think you said that if I shop around for lenders, I can put down as little as 5% on a conventional loan for a duplex. Would you suggest a credit union for this? I would shop around local banks and credit unions. I didn't have luck with credit unions, but there are some local banks that have the product and it changes every couple of months. Not too long ago, like a month or 2, maybe 2 months ago, I did an interview with a young couple who did a 5% down on a duplex. So if you can't find one, the worst case scenario, so you can't find a lender that'll do 5% down on a duplex, you go FHA. FHA is 3.5% on single, duplex, triplex, or fourplex, so it stays 3.5%. I don't like FHA. It's designed for somebody who has a worse credit score and a higher debt to income ratio, worse in both cases. And mortgage insurance stays for the length of the loan. You can only have one. They're more restrictive on what you can. If you want to use FHA again, you got to refinance out of it. So if you can lender hunt until you find one that has that 5% down for a duplex, I would definitely do that. I would also make sure that your searches, and I know the agent that you're working with. So you have searches hopefully set up for houses with ADUs because that's what he invests in. And because even a house with an ADU, and in the case where I did one, it was a house with a duplex, and one of them is an ADU, and I don't know which one it is. But a house with an ADU is a single family. Numbers work like a duplex, but it's all single family lending. So if that's your first house and you haven't owned one for 3 years, that'll be 3% down conventional. If you have owned one in the last 3 years, 5% down conventional. Dividend Dave, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that to help preserve my wealth. That's beautiful. I wonder if someday my portfolio will be so large I shouldn't talk about numbers, because Zuber and Matt don't hide the numbers because they're afraid of a lawsuit. They want to seem relatable, right? Achievable. You can do what they did. So we often talk about getting to 4. Once you get to 4, your life changes. That doesn't mean you get to 4 and stop. It just means work on getting to 4, because you can picture that. If somebody says, yeah, until you get about 50 rentals, really nothing changes. I mean, that's daunting, right? But I think my portfolio and my numbers are small enough to where when I talk, it seems achievable. The cash flow is bigger numbers than I've ever thought of ever having, but maybe you guys don't think a couple $100,000 in cash flow that you just don't have to work for is that unbelievable. But to me, it's absolutely unbelievable. James, howdy. Would you ever invest in an Airbnb? So great phrasing on the question. I would not invest in an Airbnb. I wouldn't buy a property that had to be an Airbnb for it to make money. But if I could buy a property that's a long-term rental, which I have 7 properties, 16 units. There was one, the house with the duplex, that I was actually doing a lease renewal on the house. And I thought it would be great if the tenants would move, and then I would run an Airbnb there and see how it goes. But then they asked for a massive rent increase, and I acquiesced, and I still have those tenants. So I didn't do it. So yes, I would do Airbnb. I kind of hesitate with my small multifamily unless I have a small multifamily that I know, like a duplex. If both tenants are going to be leaving in the next year or so, then I might turn both sides into an Airbnb, but I wouldn't want long-term tenants next door or a revolving door. It's probably not the right way to look at it, but it's how I see it. But the house with the duplex are separate. There's like totally fenced off, separate yards, different driveways. They never interact with each other. So to me, it would be the best one, other than I have a house, my single family house that I owned before I was a rental. Before I owned rentals, I would probably Airbnb that too. So yes, as long as it made sense as a long-term, but I wouldn't buy one that had to be Airbnb to make money, because HOA, municipality, lawsuit, and estate, something can change, like Hawaii going, hey, 3-month minimum. Or your HOA saying, we're at our threshold, no more short-term, right? And now you create an alligator in a place where no one else can do an Airbnb. So your sales value could drop to long-term rental or owner-occupy value instead of short-term rental value. That was a good question, James. Thank you. Michelle, and I think I missed. Tom, I missed your super chat. Thank you for that. Let me see if I can find a question here. Make sure I don't miss it. Just a thank you and support. I appreciate that, Tom, very much. I hope everybody understands that super chats, it doesn't have to be a lot. Just do these couple dollars. That's huge, because that's telling YouTube, share this with other people. People enjoy the content. It's not that, I need the $2. Well, my $2 is great. And then I lost my spot. Okay. Michelle. I'm not that Michelle. Okay, it was an email. Sorry. Northview, but I did miss the 100th time meeting because of the remodel I am working on. Understandable. Howdy, Yoder. T-stamps. Howdy. You sent a message a while back that I appreciated. It was like a thank you one. Well, written one. Thank you. Can you explain again when you say you can't afford to rent like your renters, but you can own properties? I understand somewhat, but refresh that thought. Can you explain again when you say you can't afford to rent? Okay. So I'll be as brief as I can on this one and see if I can convey the whole thing. When I was a kid, we lived in LA. So it wasn't like we were in the middle of nowhere. We were in Saugus, LA County. small town, but I mean, still it's in LA. And we never owned or rented a house. We would move into a house that was vacant, fix the doors and windows, wait for the owners to find out we were there, and then we would move. My parents said we weren't squatters because squatters trash a place and force an eviction. We stayed in a place, made it better, and then the second they found out about us, we just moved. There was one time on the street called Haskell Canyon where the owner showed up and said, hey, I really like the idea of somebody living here. It kind of protects the place. How about you guys just pay $50 a month in rent? My dad said, F you, and we moved. And I remember going to a friend's house and hearing their parents talk about, well, first of all, I went to the friend's house. They had cereal. I couldn't believe people got to eat a bowl of sugar. Like, because all we had to do, I had to suffer through steak, goat, and lamb. Like, we raised all of our own food. So I ate like a king when I was a kid, but I couldn't believe my friend was so rich they could have cereal, right? From a store. And it's beautiful. If you know this about California back in the day, we were too poor for food stamps. Try explaining that to somebody nowadays where you just get a food stamp voucher thing. Back then, you give the state $1, they give you $2 worth of food stamps. So it kind of eliminated the selling your food stamps for money. But they didn't have money to buy the food stamps, so we raised our own food. But I would hear my friends' parents talk about rent, and I would hear the amount, and it was like $700 to $1,000 or whatever. I couldn't believe they had that much money to pay for rent, and that was every month. That's insane. We lived everywhere for free. Why would you pay when there's all these empty houses? There's 17, is it 17 million or 13 million? Right now, because the stat is 17 million vacant homes, 13 million homeless people, right? I might have those backwards, but if those are the two numbers that you could just move into, wait for the owner to find it. My dad passed away moving into a triplex behind a bar, rented out the other 2 units, lived in his until he died. No one ever knew who the owner was. Like, this is, and that was less than 10 years ago. So, I mean, this is still going on. This isn't like back in the 90s, in the million years ago era. But as a kid, I couldn't understand how because we were the poor family, found myself in the home of people who were so rich they could pay rent. And part of that still sticks in my head. So I'm house hacking a unit of my fourplex. The other 3 units are paying rent. All my tenants in my other properties are paying rent. And I'm living for it. I'm getting paid to live here, right? And I see my tenants, brand new cars, trips all the time. In my head, all of my tenants, I would think until I retired 3 months ago, all my tenants were richer than me because they could afford to pay rent. That's just crazy. Hopefully that was what you were talking about. And I used to have a problem talking about my childhood. Like when I joined the Marines, I wouldn't talk about my childhood at all because, y'all judge each other. But I don't care anymore. I'm like a survivor of my childhood, not a product of my childhood. So I'll share it now because I know there's other people out there. Like I just shared on Facebook the other day. I found, because my brother has it, I didn't realize he had it, the bus that I lived in for a couple of years when I got out of the Marine Corps. Me and my son were homeless. We ended up moving into a bus that my brother owned. We made a septic system with 50-gallon tanks out in the middle of these where we had it. And for, I'd say a decade, I was so embarrassed. I would never talk about, oh yeah, we lived in a bus. It sucked. Now I'm like, from bus to financially free. Judge all you want, right? Julie, you are an entrepreneur. I'm so glad you brought that. I was going to actually make a video. I still probably will. Why I'm not an entrepreneur? Michael Zuber's not an entrepreneur. Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, I think, is an entrepreneur. Well, a lot of people say, Julie, they want to become an entrepreneur because they don't want a boss. Well, congratulations, everybody with a Yelp account is your boss. And then they say, well, I don't want to work 40 hours a week. And well, congratulations, an entrepreneur works 80 or 90 hours a week, right? I am a good employee. I believe I was good in the Marines, and I believe I was good in law enforcement. I believe I was good as a truck driver. Like I always did my job. I got fired, got laid off during the recession. I guess that counts. Working at the truck driving school, I grew it for the owners. I don't know that I would have grown it for myself. I'm an investor. When I'm not working, I was trying for the last 12 years. So before that, I was just broke. But for the last 12 years, I've tried to figure out how do I put my money to work? And it wasn't grow a side hustle. Like I have a couple of side hustles, but it's like provide expert witness testimony for court cases in industries I've worked in. So it's just read a couple emails, write a couple letters of explanation, and make $1,000, right? So it's not like I'm working welding, making something to sell on the weekends or something, like a side hustle that takes work. I invested passively, basically, into real estate, cash flowing, tenant occupied properties that don't need rehabs to replace my W-2 income. Matt, the lumberjack landlord, buying properties that need rehabs, self-managing over 100 units. My brother buying his 10 paid off rentals, but he did the thing where he used a home equity line of credit to buy a falling down trailer, mobile home, and fixed it up. Like months of his own effort and energy went into that to turn it into a rental. I haven't done any of that. So I think definition wise, I might be an entrepreneur, but like motivation, like the guy that was talking at the one rental at a time meetup, he came in right after lunch, and he was the high motivator guy. Like I could listen to him all the time, because that's why I listen to Grant Cardone, because it's the motivation more than the information. And he was talking about in the morning, you wake up and he gives these 10 affirmations of things you're thankful for. And he's just like, get yourself amped up. I sat back, actually texted Millennial Mike. In the morning, I take 30 minutes to wake up. And then it dawned on me that what matters is knowing what time of day you're most productive, and making sure that's the day that you're doing your investing, you're at your deal, looking at, you're making offers, that kind of stuff. But for a moment, I thought, yeah, these guys are super hard charging, motivated people. And I'm over here, the lazy guy who just bought rentals to make income so I don't have to work. Theo, howdy. Did you qualify as a real estate professional when you were working full-time and investing? No. And the CPAs, the tax pros that I've talked to, said that they've never seen a case where somebody has a W-2, qualified as a real estate professional, and was audited and passed. So lumberjack landlord did it last year. He did some cost segregation studies, saved himself tens of thousands of dollars because his spouse was the real estate professional and didn't have a W-2. There's 2 requirements to hit that I never would have, and I'm not going to commit fraud in the United States. First, you have to work in real estate more than 751 hours. I, on average, spend less than 2 hours a month self-managing my rental unit. So 751, 24. I don't hit it. Second, you have to work in real estate more than you do your W-2 job. And I was working 50 to 60 hours a week as an employee. Never hit that either. But if, and this is not worth me having a spouse, but if you have a spouse and one of you is not working and qualifies as a real estate professional, now it's game changer. So with real estate, last year, 6 figures of profit, 0 taxes. Quitting my W-2, 6 figures of income, crap ton of taxes. Eric, howdy. I've been watching you and 2 Amigos a lot lately. Awesome, we appreciate it. I have 150 units. Awesome. And I'm wondering if I should start an online presence like you. Would you start from 0 and do it again? A lot of work. There's a lot of work to it. Why did I start doing YouTube? So it never hurts to have an online presence. You might be more dynamic than me. You might be like Millennial Mike, who's just freaking funny, and people are going to watch him. Like he had hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views, I think, on TikTok. Like that's his thing, right? So it totally makes sense that he's investing in the state and he brings an entertaining presence. I was in the BiggerPockets forums and the Facebook groups answering questions, just trying to share. And I saw that almost always the same questions come up. Should you pay off a mortgage? How do you get more than one mortgage while you're working? Because your debt to income hits a limit. Should you have an LLC? My favorite question. So I actually made a couple of videos, and I thought, okay, I'm probably going to make like 5 or 10 videos to answer questions. And then when people ask online, I'll send them the video, right? So I did that. And then I realized investing is simple, but it's nuanced. There are thousands of videos explaining simple concepts that I would like to make. If there's any gamers out there, you can watch a video on a video game to explain how to do one little thing. And there could be 100 of those videos to play the game. Real estate is like that. You don't need to watch all of the videos, but when you get to the point and you're like, what kind of lights do I put on the outside of a building? And you just go to YouTube and you type in what kind of exterior lights on a rental. there's a video. Like you wouldn't think you need that video, but when you look for it, it's nice that it's there. So I started doing the videos, and I think I have over 300 videos now. My goal was 5 or 10. And then I learned when somebody asks a question in a Facebook group and you create a video, you can't send it to them. That is a faux pas. It's an accident. It's against the rules. You'll get kicked out of groups. Like I got kicked out of the Burr Invest group because I made a video that says how to Burr and why I don't. And they're all about getting people to invest with their Burr program. So I got kicked out. So the biggest compliment you can give a YouTube creator is if somebody asks a question and you know that one of the three amigos or Millennial Mike or somebody has a video on that, share that with them, and you're not the content creator, you don't get kicked out of the group, they don't get in trouble. So I share other people's content all the time, but I can't share my own. Kind of like if you've been on Facebook and you've seen the LLC question come up, I have a canned response that I just copy and paste. It has a link to someone else's stuff, and I talk about Meet Kevin's anti-LLC videos. So an online presence, it is a lot of work. Just as a hobby, I'm probably doing 30 hours a week with YouTube. I'll probably continue. It's fun. I like making the videos. I love doing the question stuff. The meetup was great. Hopefully there's more of those. We'd like to get one rental at a time to 50,000 subscribers so we can do the meetup in Vegas. Sometimes the questions that come up, because I'm still a content intaker, right? I still watch. Like I watch one rental at a time's daily update every time. He does hours of research and stuff that would matter to an investor that I'm never going to take the time to read, and then puts it into a format that matters to investors. So I watch that every day. I watch Lumberjack Landlord's product reviews to figure out, like, I learned stuff about electrical that I put to use in my next tenant turnover. I watch Minority Mindset. Like I still look forward to those kind of videos. So is it worth it? I don't know how much time it would take, because you can either pay to have videos edited, you can hire a teenager to teach you how to do this, or you could take the time to self-educate yourself, which takes just about as much time as it did to learn real estate. So I don't think it's a bad idea. I just want to make sure you know the commitment you'd be making. Chester, what's up, everyone? Interestingly, I got the alert 30 minutes before the live, but not for the live itself. Yeah, YouTube messes around. It's weird. Angel, do you still play World of War? I was playing this today. Yes. My son plays and some friends play that I don't really stay in touch with. So I don't play it as much as I did between 2008 and 2014 when it was a source of revenue for me. But I still play. I am a nerd. Yep. I like playing MMORPGs where, you know, you kill your opponent and there's somebody in Korea who just threw their keyboard across the room because you cost them hours of their time. My goal. Chester, all-nighter hider. I chalk it up to YouTube being YouTube. Levi. We had our first emergency repair over the weekend, water spraying from washer supply. We called our plumber and it was fixed in a few hours. Those weekend repair calls are not as bad after all. That's awesome. So I did a video earlier today with Lumberjack Landlord and Millennial Mike on the biggest fears investors have. And those late night weekend call emergency things are top of the list. It's what if I can't find a tenant? What if a tenant trashes my property? And what if I get a late night call? Hopefully, if you're watching content like this, you know, Levi, that we said before you have the emergency, Google your area, use Thumbtack, find out the tree trimmers that have emergency 24-hour service and will work with insurance. Have that number sitting there. So if a tree ever falls on your house, you just make a phone call, or falls on your rental, you make a phone call. Have a plumber that has 24-hour emergency service, know their rates, figure out, you know, compare a couple, have those numbers sitting there so that when it happens, it's a phone call. And when you first start investing, that first year, a pipe breaking, a tree falling, or whatever that you know, your deductible, or if you don't use insurance, you just pay for it, feels like you are paying for it. And that sucks. But as you've owned a rental for a while, remember, when we purchase a property, we're calculating a yield based on how much rent is coming in, minus principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and setting aside money for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. That money being set aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy goes into an account. That's the tenant's money. I mean, it's technically yours, it's in your account, but just keep putting it in there, building your reserves, your emergency fund, so that when you get that call and you had to pay the plumber to go out and fix the problem, the tenants paid for that. It might not feel like it the first year because you're still building that account with that. I do 10% for repairs and maintenance, 5% for vacancy. So 15% is set aside into this account that's going in there to pay for those repairs. So I actually look forward to a roof failing. Imagine that as a landlord. Oh, it sucks. My roof goes. It's like, it could be $7,000 to $12,000 just gone, right? It's not my money. It's tenants' money. Since I've owned those rentals, they've been putting aside 15% of gross rents into that account to pay for those things like a roof. And then when those funds pay for that roof, I have a newly protected asset with a 30-year roof on it that the tenants paid for. So yeah, those calls aren't that bad after all. So awesome. I mean, sorry you had to deal with the problem, but I agree with you. It's not that big a deal. Lumberjack landlord, howdy, Siberia. I loved your live stream with Millennial Mike where you guys went and did the tour walkthrough of the property, because the thumbnail, I looked at it and I saw you guys were out in a winter wonderland snowy field, but it's the plastic in the background of your thing. It just looked like it. Sebastian, Dion, if I had to choose between having only 3 properties or having 30 that produce the same cash flow, what would you choose and why? Beyond the obvious answer of being lazy. So if I had to choose between 30 or 3 that provided the same cash flow, if you said 10 or 30, I'd probably choose 10. But if it's 3 or 30, I'd probably choose 30, because I want to also experience as much principal pay down and appreciation as I can. So we're not taking into what market are you investing in, and how diversified is, and how close are they. And there's a million things going on there that we're not considering. But if we're just talking numbers, I'd probably rather have 30 than 3. And then I'd whittle it down to the ones I want. But I believe that having 7 properties and getting the appreciation of the last 2 years has tripled my net worth in 2 years, because I have 7 properties. If I only had 3, that'd be a smaller amount, even if the cash flow was better. But you said the same. So hope that answers. 30 over 3, but 10 over 30. Michelle, I took out the wood stove and lived through that. Yep, storm pregnant, nice. But I didn't lose power for more than a day. Yeah, most of my properties would never lose for more than a day, but I have one property where a transformer blew and it took like 3 days, but that wasn't even a cold storm. It was just the thing. And then my house that I was in that's at the lake, that all the wires are above ground and they can lose power every now and then there. Let me see where we were at here. Give it a Dave again. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Christine, howdy. I have an excellent mortgage broker. Awesome. We talked about that a little bit off camera today, me and the lumberjack. He has more than 10 mortgages in his own name. So he's into developing a relationship with a bank to have loan products to buy properties. Very important to maintain that relationship. I'm the opposite end of the spectrum. I kind of want my mortgage brokers to not like me, because I'm going to compare them. I'm going to go to at least 3 when I purchase the next property. I'm going to show each one, this is what the other ones are offering. Whoever beats their not only interest rate, but fees, buy down rate, closing costs, whatever one is the most attractive is I'm going to go with. And here's what they're offering, so that you know what you need to beat. That's probably irritating. But it's how I do it, because I have less than 10 mortgages in my name and I'm still using conventional loans. Once I have 10 and now it's going to take a relationship with a lender, yes, I would shift to how the lumberjack does it. Levi, Michelle, you're in the Northwest as well. We keep some oil-filled electric space heaters for our tenants. If it keeps us from putting them in a hotel room, even once they pay for themselves. A brilliant idea. I will have to look into that. Oil-filled space heaters. So that means they burn, and I'm not familiar with them, so they're not plugged in, because you're talking if power goes out. I will have to look into those. Christine, Airbnb and bookings are down by 40% right now. Nice. So it would depend on where you're at. I would assume, and you know what happens when you make an assumption? You make an ass out of you, an assumption. That the warmer climates are packed right now, the colder climates are not, unless you're somebody going there for snowing. And what's going on in your local market, how saturated it is. Yeah, so bookings down is not good. You might have to adjust your prices. Levi, curious if you think buying or selling single-family house with ADU gives an investor an advantage as compared to multifamily building selling. We're thinking buy as an investment, and if selling, renovate and sell to single-family home buyers that may be multi-generational, etc. Basically, you're competing with emotional buyers instead of investors on both the buy and sell. Good train of thought. Which asset class is going to be easier to sell? You have more competition with single-family houses because there are less people investing than there are home buyers. But home buyers are being priced out right now. Rents are adjusting to where even investors are finding it hard to find the yield. Are you buying with the intent of selling? So Kris Krohn, a great YouTube channel. Again, watch for the energy, not for the strategy, because he doesn't do what I do. Early videos. More recently, he's bigger on YouTube, and people seem to change when that happens. I'm making a call right now that I never do a syndication or try to pitch a syndication on YouTube. So somebody write down the date and time, because I mean that. Not that it's bad that he's doing that, but his original concept was buy a house, keep it for 7 years, and then try to sell it to the tenant, right? The lease option. So you get a higher than normal mortgage payment than the rent would be coming in. You get a bit of a down payment. You're holding the note, and you're selling it before the big CapEx expenses come. That's great strategy, not mine. My strategy with real estate is the goal is better than my marriages, like actually until death do we part. I don't ever want to sell out of Mountain Dew. So I'm going to drink some water so my voice stays good. I need Mountain Dew. And we're thinking, okay, so yeah, if your goal is to sell, local market too, and how long are you going to sell? Because markets can shift. There is more competition for single family houses in my area than there are for small multifamily. But I don't buy with the intent of selling. So maybe. And 10 years ago, I probably would have agreed with you 100%. But with the popularity of YouTube University making real estate investors like a more known thing, you don't have like 3 investors in your area who might talk to you. You literally have hundreds of investors producing hundreds of hours of content every week on how real estate works. I don't think it would be very difficult to sell my small multifamily right now either, based on the calls and texts that I get. That's some strong water. Financial firefighter. Hawaii short-term is crazy. If you are not in certain zoned areas, they are trying to make it 90-day minimum. Yep, that's what I've heard. Might have been something I heard from you, but I forget where I heard it. Tom, and you did the super chat, and I missed this here. I was driving and couldn't ask a question. Oh, don't text and drive, especially as a driver. And I love the movie Better Off Dead. It's my favorite. Nice. I forgot to ask my new agent to look for ADUs. Thanks for the reminder. Yes, ADUs, and then make sure that you know that you can't control the colloquialism that the listing agent is going to use. So make sure you search for every type of nomenclature there is for ADU. Accessory dwelling, auxiliary dwelling, detached accessory and auxiliary, mother-in-law house, granny flat, J ADU, all the ways that it could be put on there. Look for it. Maybe even to the point of just looking at all single family in your area for about a month, figuring out the ones that have ADUs, and then you'll know in your market what agents are using for the terminology to list ADUs. All-nighter hider. My stepdad and I were laughing at the story of your dad moving house to house and saying no to $50 rent. Nice, good. Yeah. I love my dad. I miss you. I miss you so much. Miss you too much. Question. What area of the country was your dad house hacking? He was in Soledad Canyon in LA County, so southern LA, living in a triplex, living in one unit, renting out the other 2, getting power from a bar. Yeah. Sometimes we get advice from broke people, and most of the people we know is broke. So careful where you get your advice from. Chester, the difference is our mindset and what we do with it. Agreed. REI Stoners. My lender just confirmed there's one program, but depending on areas, there are certain income limits. So we have to take a chance for a multi-property, only putting down 5%. Awesome. Good thing for checking. Tom, instead of reducing the units or thoughts of paying off a place, how about your next step in the evolution of investing? Hypothetically, what would you do, or what's interesting to you? So most of the people I know would tell you that I'm the most arrogant person they've ever met in their entire life because they just don't understand that money is a game that most people don't know they're playing. And I just talk about money like it's not a real thing, because as soon as you realize money is not a real thing, it's so much easier to make it. So I don't handle conversations well with people who say those things like, well, I would never want to own rentals now because interest rates are going up. Literally ignoring that's not how any of this works. You own rentals based on what you purchase them at. So I'm not arrogant enough to say my portfolio is so big I would invest in something else. I would invest in what I know. I know small multifamily. I know house hacking. I know self-managing my rentals. I know buying within an hour. Like, I don't think I would change it because my portfolio isn't big enough now. A couple $100,000 a year in profit isn't enough to go, let me risk $100,000 in some other asset class that I need to learn. If it was big enough, I would probably look at hard money lending. I'm going to be doing a video with Cody and Christian and Zuber talking about hard money lending, as though I'm researching it to see if it's something I would do, because I have a couple of friends who want to do hard money lending because they don't understand the asset class the way that I do. They don't have the self-confidence. They don't have the proof is in the pudding that they've done it, so they would keep doing it. They're actually looking for a way to put money to work as passively as possible. So I'm going to people who know how that works to make a video. But it would probably be hard money lending. You get a bigger interest rate, less work. You can back it with an asset class that I do understand. Yeah. Maybe marriage counseling. That's what I invest in. Chester, perfect case in point. Did you guys catch that? Dion said, I am an investor. Exactly. Not an entrepreneur. Present tense. Hi, Chester. Thanks, Tom, Sean, and Wendy. God is amazing. Howdy. And then those are cool emoji. Thank you, Chester. Hey, Tom, how are you? Chester. Financial firefighter. It's fun, but man, it's a lot of work. Yeah. And my chat moved. Dion from Tom Kine. When are you putting your son's journey here? Good question. He paid off his debt and is saving for his first duplex. He's got married, paid off student loans, got a CDL to make money to pay off student loans. Probably right after they close on their first house hack. That's when I think I would love to get him on a video. If he's willing to. Don't know if he will. Wayne, howdy. Out of the three amigos, I like your perspective the best. So that's my goal, is that some of us resonate with certain people. There are other people out there that look at me and go, I would never do that. That's lazy. I want 100 units. I want a home equity line of credit. I want a cash out refinance. I don't want debt equity, like all the things that I do that they just would never do. If mine resonates with you, awesome. That doesn't mean all three of us don't have something that you can, because I'm still learning from the other guys too, right? But mine resonates the most with me too. I wouldn't want over 100 units. Like, even with a property manager, I don't think I'd want over 100 units. All-nighter hider, welcome, Mitchell. Glad to have you. Did I miss a Mitchell? Oh, this is an awesome financial fighter. It's an awesome name. I totally agree. I think Financial Firefighter is doing a YouTube channel now. You should check it out. Lumberjack landlord, if only someone you know had done a video on winter preparations like oil heaters. That would be amazing. Although it's not winter here like it is winter there. So, but I will have to check that out. If you send me a link, Matt, I'll pin a comment in this video for people who want more information on oil heaters and winterization. So I can send you to the Lumberjacks video on that. All that header, that comment matches your little picture lumberjack. Eric, why not drink wine instead of 80 proof water? I have the taste buds of a 5-year-old. I can't stand alcohol. Magic trick, get vodka and a Brita filter. Brita water, run the vodka through that a couple of times, and then your water isn't as bad as wine. I would be, both my parents were, so I would be an alcoholic if I found an alcohol I like the taste of. I haven't. And everyone on the planet, so I've got the drink for you. And it's not the fruity, sweet, whatever drinks. It just can't taste like alcohol. And to the point where a bite of tiramisu would make me hurl, right? Like, I just don't like the taste of alcohol. So the stronger, the less you have to drink, the better. Thank you for the super chat, Eric. I appreciate that. I do have, actually, there's a bunch of wine here because when I have guests, they tend to drink wine. Apparently, I don't know too many women who like water. REI Stoners, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving. Saving some tamales for you. Awesome. Appreciate that. I hope you guys have a good Thanksgiving. This is your first one in the Pacific Northwest. I don't think there's anything that we do that's different than California. But I appreciate the super chats. That was really cool. Why do I not drink wine? Here's a great story, and I can share this because she's no longer with us. Probably going to get mad. I grew up drinking a ton of Welch's grapefruit juice because here's a way too much of an overshare, and then I'll get to any more questions before we wrap this up for the night. Hopefully there are more questions. But so my dad left when I was 8. Me and my mom worked in the onion fields in California. And so imagine the little Caucasian kid working with the non-Caucasian kids, getting his butt kicked every day because I was taking their work. And my mom was making, I don't know, 20 or 30 bucks a day because she got 50 cents per bag you filled. And my best day as an 8-year-old was 16 bucks. And I didn't get the money. She got the money. At the end of the day, I got to go to the Roach Coach and buy something that I didn't have to share. It was like the only time it was mine. And in our valley where we live, in the Antelope Valley, on the other side, Rockwell started building this big, huge building. And my mom goes, I could take out their trash, right? She had made it to 45, never had a driver's license, was a stay-at-home parent with a whole bunch of kids, and I'm the baby. And she thought, no driver's license, would drive the side streets to avoid the freeway because they get you on the freeway. And she goes over to this Rockwell company to apply to take out the trash. And during the interview, they're like, you're very petite, to my mom. How do you feel about confined spaces? So they hired my mom, sent her to Florida for training for 6 months on the space shuttle. And she became what's called a tile bonder. This the dirt stuff on the outside that stops her from overheating on reentry. They taught her how to bond the tiles. So she'd never had, that I know of, a job, a boss, a corporate, anything. And she didn't like to drive. So in order to get around not liking to drive and having a corporate culture, my mom drank wine. But you can't take wine to work, right? They wouldn't let you do that even back in the dinosaur days. So she would buy Welch's grapefruit juice and pour it into my container. So I grew up drinking a ton of grapefruit juice so that she would have a container to take her wine to work in. So that's my memory of wine. Port Gallo. So it wasn't even like it was good wine. It was just wine. That's probably why I'm not an actual alcoholic, is because that was my experience of parents being alcoholics when I was a kid. Imagine this, though. My mom went from $20 to $30 a day filling onion bags to going there to thinking I could be like a janitor service and take out their trash, and got hired to do this in the, was this the 80s? Yeah, 80s, in the 80s, $32 an hour. Her life flipped on its end. And then I would say, well, I had a better childhood, but so that was from 8 to 10, we worked in Ivy Fields. 10, she got the job at Rockwell. So from 10, and then I moved out at 14. So for 4 years, she bought a mobile home in a trailer park because she didn't know what to do with money. And then she took the mobile home out into this little town called Rosemont, California, which had no people, and put it on a rock and hauled water. Like she retired with a pension and didn't know how money worked. Still, guy never had an example of what to do with money. There's your overshare for today. I should probably take that out of the video. I think we're coming up to the end of questions. Chester, pointing to high interest rates is merely an excuse. Like Zuber said, it's only one variable in the calculation. Exactly. It's based on yield, and rents have skyrocketed. And I keep saying all of these videos come out of rents are crashing, rents are going down. And yes, wish list rents aren't getting as high as they were. But I just did the interview that's here on the channel with Dana, the CEO of Hemline, where they have 18,500 rentals and 3,000 landlords. Not one, and me and Millennial Mike and Lumberjack Landlord, we actually over 100 units, asked ourselves too. Nobody that we know has renewed a lease with a tenant at a lower amount than they had the lease for last year. Rents might not be projecting up the 20, 30, 40% they were for the last 2 years, but they're going up. And the housing system, the housing voucher program, bases their current values on the last 5 years. The last 2 years are going to start being a part of that metric. And when we had a huge rent increase, so even Section 8 is going to go up in 23 and 24. Interest rate is just part of the calculation. What is the price? What is the rents? And then factor in interest rates. Mad 76. Howdy. The interest at 8% is killing the margin. Most business is not cash flowing. What to do? Watch properties that sit on the MLS, watch days on market, and start making embarrassing offers. If it was sitting 10 days in your market and now it's sitting 30, offer 60%. Like if they want 500,000, offer 300,000, offer 350. Embarrassing offers. People have properties listed at wish list pricing and they were expecting to sell. In my area, houses would list and sell in less than a day. So if they hit 10 days on market, I got one accepted, and there was a reason why I backed out of it, but there was so much work that needed done. But it was, I want to say 2/3 the value that you can usually get 3 months ago. So watch days on market and start making some embarrassing offers. Make sure your agent is okay with the work, that you might not get them, that you might get laughed at, you might get ignored. That's what I would do. So sorry, Matt, missed that video. I will get a link for it. Wayne, just a little north of you, love to meet sometime. We do the Tacoma FI meetup, meets once a month, second Tuesday of the month. If you find us on Facebook, Tacoma FI, we all get together once a month around here and we just go and hang out somewhere. And it's not like a REI meetup where you go and a lender does a presentation or a brokerage does a presentation. We just go to a restaurant, everybody talks. And it can be on any financial independence subject, doesn't have to be real estate. And the slide park here is good. I like it too. I need to do some videos there if we get a day where it's not soaking wet. Chester, great idea, Dion. From what I remember, water that's been filtered at least 10 times is considered high quality. And it is unbelievable the difference when you just run it through the Brita filter. It's crazy. Extra strength grape juice. Christina, in case someone needs one who can't get approved. There we go. I must have missed it, Christine. Oh, you have the lender from earlier. Nice. Put your email in the chat, Christina, if you want, and put a space between the .com at the end, because I have it set up to where you can't put links, which sometimes stops the porn people from putting on links. But feel free if you want people to reach out to you to get a hold of that lender. Theo, howdy. Do you have an umbrella policy? I do. And how much do you determine what amount to use? So when I got to 4 properties, I got an umbrella policy. And looking back, I've said this a couple of times, I think I should have got it when I hit 3. The idea is each property has full replacement value of the building, so not just the mortgage, but the replacement value of the buildings, which goes up, and then $300,000 injury or slip fall coverage on the property. If it goes above that, then the umbrella policy kicks in, so that you can't lose multiple assets. Your insurance would kick in. I have a $2 million policy that cost me about $600 a year, not a month. Jeez. It was $550 the first like 6 years I had it. Last year it went up to six something. So it's $600 and something for $2 million in coverage. The one weird thing is when you get the umbrella policy, this was an adjustment for me. I always had state minimums on car insurance, which is stupid because the state minimums here in Washington will only cover $25,000 of the car that you damage. And so I had a daughter who loves to drive and sing and kissed some cars, and it went over $25,000. So that was a mess to untangle. When you get an umbrella policy, the carrier is probably going to require that your homeowner's insurance policy, your car insurance, and the umbrella policy are from the same provider. So mine did. And when they did that, the car policy had to increase the minimums beyond the state's minimums, which ended up being like $6. I mean, it was nothing to cover way more money on insurance. So look at the umbrella and then find out if they have any other requirements on your other insurance that might change it too. And I went with 2 million because at the time when I got it years ago, the total value of the properties was less than 2 million. The values now is over 5 million. So I might adjust that. Should probably look into what an increase to that would be. Tom Kine, I like the story of your mom. Thank you. It's an overshare, and if she was still alive, I probably wouldn't share it. But Julie, it's super weird that we are not taught about money at school or home. I don't know anyone who was. So have you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, Julie? Because I have this thought, and I'm pretty sure it's from Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad. He talks about early 19th century, late 1800s, right? The Fords and Rockefellers go to the United States and they say, we'll make your schools. We'll build the schools. You get the Ford Middle School, all the names after the big school, names like that, right? With the caveat that you can't teach finances. And we want the school structured like a factory. We want Monday through Friday. If Ford's going to have a 5-day work week, we want school to have a 5-day work week. We want a bell to say, this is when it starts. This is when your break happens. You're going to do 8 hours a day, just like a factory. Literally training people to go to work in factories because the factories needed people. If you understand finance, you know that there are other paths to financial freedom than working a job. And the companies were trying to figure out how to get people and keep them long term. People are learning now that the easiest way to get raises is to change jobs every 2 to 3 years. But originally people lived on farms, right? 1800s, you lived on a farm, and the idea was you had enough kids so that when you get too old to work, your kids are older, they were on the farm and they take care of you in your old age. Factories needed people to come in off the farms, and now you couldn't go into the factory, have 5 kids and grow old, and then your kids would take care of you. So the factories had to offer pensions. Easy to do when the life expectancy was 45. And they go, you work for 20 years and then we'll pay you till you die. So they get a couple of years between, 18 to 38 and then pay for a couple of years. And then life expectancy started going up 50, 60, 70, 76.8 years now. So pensions don't make sense. So they trick us by going, we're going to get away from this. You put into a pension fund and you get a guaranteed amount forever, to you put into a pension fund from your amount, we'll match some. And then there's like designated amount or some fancy terms that my memory never keeps. But the 401k system comes out to tell people you can actually change jobs, you can continue to invest, because the people making money off retirement accounts are the ones managing them, not the ones putting money into them. See, all of my videos on retirement accounts suck. But Julie, hopefully that kind of sums it up in a nutshell. And I know, like, I want to say 95% of that is from Robert Kiyosaki, because that's what he's talked about. Yeah, that's why school doesn't teach it. We have some schools like DeSantis, I think in Florida, just said part of finances has to be taught in school. Hopefully we see more of that. Chester, I like how Zuber references what Patrick Bet David calls disrespectful offers. Yes, absolutely. Dividend Dave, embarrassing offer. Dion, can I buy one of your homes with a super chat? Everything's for sale for the right price. I don't know if super chat goes up that high. Chester, So 20% or 25% off their wish list pricing. Yep, Dividend Dave. That's the spirit. Exactly. Daniel, howdy. I used to say I would flip houses so I didn't have to deal with tenants. Nice. But after most likely losing 20,000 out on my first flip and watching your channel, I know that buy and hold is the way to go. So a lot of people do, like Tarl Yarber from the Seattle area does a lot of flipping, right? But even he goes, at some point, successful flips, you make 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. You sit back and as an investor go, I wish I had that property. The appreciation, pay down, and cash flow would have been way more than the amount of money I made then. But people do flips to generate revenue to invest. So I totally get it. But if you're losing money, that would put a sour taste in your mouth too. I did buy and hold because, as we've talked about earlier in this video, I'm not an entrepreneur. And flipping is entrepreneurial. It's a job. It's episodic. You stop working, money stops coming in. And you might lose a bunch of money. Whereas buying a rental, I'm sure it's absolutely possible to buy an alligator and lose money. But if you educate yourself, I lost money my first year owning a rental, moving into the apartment. I did everything wrong. I was uneducated. I thought it was going to replace my income, find my freedom. I didn't even know freedom number was a thing, but I was going to find my freedom number without any education whatsoever. Sometimes we learn slowly, but we learn. Dividend Dave, laughing. All-nighter hider. Hit that like button for Dion's incredible efforts for us. There is no effort involved here, but I do appreciate it if you hit the like button. This is me sharing the reason my live streams are important, the reason I like it when Lumberjack, Millennial Mike, and Zuber, we all do live streams, is I can research a topic. So I researched a topic the other day, the 5 reasons your friends are broke, right? I come up with the 5 concepts. I get enough details about each one to be able to make a point-by-point thing go through, right? That's not in my mind when I'm talking to people. Like, what are the 5 reasons why everybody's broke? I just made the video like 3 days ago. I'd have to go look at my notes, right? But these kind of questions, how do you reach financial freedom? The concepts, what is actually in an investor's mind? This is huge. This is the information I wish I had in like 2014, 2016. I didn't find Zuber's one rental at a time until 2018. And I remember sitting back going, this is what I did. If I had read this 6 years earlier, I would have known this is what I was going to do. Dividend Dave popping off with a super chat. I appreciate that. For one of Dion's multifamily, accepting this super chat is a binding contract in the state of everywhere. That super chat buys you my Corvette. You can have my Corvette for that super chat. Next time we see each other, remind me to give you my Corvette. It's sitting right there on a shelf. That's the property your super chat purchases. Per contracts, you have to be very specific. Nice try, though. I appreciate it. It's good stuff. Mad76 with a super chat. I have to leave. Watching the end later. Thanks for encouraging me on the embarrassing offer. Let's do it. Yeah, so watch. So when you come back in Futureland Mad76 and you watch this, remember to watch Days on Market. People find off-market deals all the time. All my deals are from the MLS. And for the last couple of years, speed was our friend. The faster you can get an offer made, the better. Not so much now. Watch a property that's not selling. So, and if they're not motivated, they're not going to take an offer. It's just going to sit on the MLS for 90 days. They might relist it. They might take it down. But if they have to sell, divorce, death in family, moving, occupation, whatever change that made them have to sell, that's how you know you have a motivated seller. It sits for a while. They might not take your embarrassing offer, but they're going to come a lot closer to what would cash flow than what it's sitting at on the MLS for now. And then I see that Chester became a member, so I appreciate that. I will see you with the members only live streams on Fridays. Not every Friday, but at least 2 Fridays a month. Appreciate those super chats. Those are awesome. And I'm trying to something. Yes, Dividend Corvette. It sat on my desk at work for years. It was my second fancy car. First a Tundra, then Corvette. No, FJ, Tundra, Corvette, Raptor, F-250, Yeah. Cycled through a lot. I got tired of being poor when I wasn't poor anymore. Levi. Lazy aside, would you purchase a vacant duplex that would give a 10% cash on cash after make ready if the make ready process is projected to take about 3 months? Curious what factors you considered there. That is a great question. Thinking of checking one out, but it's 100 plus years old and needs cosmetic at least. Okay, so if it's 100 plus years old, I would look at when updating was done on like knob and tube wiring, plumbing. If those are current, brought up to speed, I don't care the age of the property. I have one that was built in 1921, so it's 101 years old. Wow, I have a century house, but everything was done in like the 80s and 90s, so it works for me. What do I look at if it's not going to cash flow for 3 months? Same thing I would look at if the exiting landlord really liked the tenant and did a new lease at a really reduced rent. So for let's say for the year, I'm going to get 500 below area average for a year lease. I would take that $500 a month times 12, $6,000, add that to my cost to acquire mentally and go, okay, so if I spent $6,000 on this deal, does it still get me my return? So if you have a 3-month burn rate, you're going to be doing the repairs, you're going to have that burn rate with no money coming in. So 3 months of no income, 2 months of those, you're going to be carrying the cost of the mortgage. Factor out how much that's going to cost you, add that to your cost to acquire. What does that do to your return? If it still gets a 10%, absolutely. Like I've never done a rehab, but that doesn't mean I don't think I could. Like I've helped my friends do it and I was like, wow, this is a great deal. My friend who did the 555 and I did the 298, her deal was better. Hers cash flowed better, had a better return. One of the units was a rehab. Even with that expense, hers is a better deal than mine that needed nothing. So absolutely, I would consider it. I make sure I'm being honest. I would consider it now with the time freedom of not working. If the rehab would take a significant amount of my time when I was working full-time, 50 to 60 hours a week, it depends on if do you have relationships with contractors or handymen that you know that can get most of the rehab done that isn't going to take your time. That would be a factor as well. How much of your personal time is it going to take? Do you have the bandwidth to handle that? Good question. Thank you. Tom, the lumberjack is good for that. Very much so. Chester, book for everyone to get. Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. Agreed. It's probably where I got Money is a Game that people don't even realize they're playing. Been saying that forever. All-Nighter Hider. That was a good, comprehensive explanation of the education system and incentive structure. Thank you. Good. And it's one of those things where I've heard it from Robert Kiyosaki in several interviews and several of his books, and it makes sense. So I kind of believe it. Chester, golden nugget from the book: invest in a low-cost index fund. It's also in the show Jack Ryan. He's in another country and he's an analyst that does finances, and a SEAL or some special forces guy says, what should I invest in? And he literally says, low-cost index fund. So good advice. Michelle, I heard from an aunt, for out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, because I try to talk about investing with my cousins. Makes it hard to share. Yeah. So no one can hear a word you say until they're ready. And sometimes they're not ready. That's the beauty of these kind of live streams. If you are taking your time and you are logging in and you're saying, okay, this investor, this lazy investor, not an entrepreneur, was working full-time while raising 3 kids and not making a lot of money, and he made financial freedom happen. If you know that and you're here, things I'm saying are going to resonate. You might take notes. I always say you can retain 3 facts. As soon as you get a 4th fact, you don't lose the 4th one. You'll lose all 4. So if you take notes, you might retain some of this. That doesn't mean we could take this information and share it. I have friends and family, and I had coworkers. I was at the school for 13 years, 12 years investing. 2 coworkers invested while I worked there. In the last several years that I worked there were 60 coworkers. 2. One retired. Dan came on here, did a video with me. Craig is the other one. He's going to be retiring soon. Yeah, no one else would listen. No one else would hear a word. I will not share their name. And if anybody that worked at my school is watching this, you'll know who I'm talking about. intelligent person, right? Working a front desk type job, interacting with customers. But one day we're talking finance. And I was doing the thing where we go, how much would you need to retire? I ask that of people every now and then. And you'll know if they are fire educated or not, because if they're not fire educated, they're going to name an amount. They're going to go, oh, I need $10 million, $5 million, $250,000, whatever. She named an amount. And I said, okay, so an amount means that if you name $1 million and you spend $50,000 a year, that means you get to live 10 years and then you're out of money and you have to die. Or if you need $50,000 a year to live and you invest to where you generate more than $50,000 from a source like real estate or stocks or a business that you don't have to sell your life for 1 hour a day and that money keeps coming in, you could live forever. Here's her takeaway. It would be so cool to live forever. We didn't talk money anymore. Chester Schellmeyer, the secret is repetition. Yes. All-nighter hider. Contracts can leave nothing to interpretation. Very true. And if you have a partnership, I would say get everything in writing as early as you can while everybody's getting along, because it's going to be hard to put it in writing later when there's a disagreement. MG, howdy. When would you consider selling your rentals? Do you have an exit strategy? Until death do us part. That's my exit strategy. I am eventually going to get a trust. So eventually meaning the next couple of years. I think guys can drop dead after 40 at any time. So not having a trust right now is a mistake. I should have a trust now. I don't want to sell. The one house I want to sell, I keep for a very petty reason. But the other ones, they create cash flow. They generate enough money to maintain them. I self-manage. It takes less than 2 hours a month. If I hire a property manager, it's probably going to take 2 hours a month. A lot of people talk about passive income. And for me, passive income is the IRS definition. Income that you can depreciate and use write-offs against, right? That's passive to me, not how much time or effort of mine it takes to get that income. 2 hours a month to make a couple $100,000 a year in profit, even into my 70s. The one mistake that landlords make, and I'm going to make this video later, the biggest, I don't even want to mention it today, the biggest mistake that makes landlords fail and sell their properties. Even Stephan did this and had to sell his property. I have a comment here. I'll put this comment in the video. Yeah, I'll do that then. I'm not making that mistake. That one mistake that landlords make that make them sell their properties. Yeah, that video is coming soon. I'll probably do that video Thursday. Kind of dumb to have it come out on Thanksgiving, but I'm going to have it come out Thursday. Trying to stay consistent. We'll see. If you can avoid this one mistake that's going to be in that video, I will never sell. If you make this mistake, you're going to have to sell. Exit strategy, what would you do with the money if you take it out, right? I'm going to generate enough cash flow to where I could stay in a home because I don't want my kids taking care of me. I saw how they took care of pets. But the monthly cash flow will take care of that, and then my kids will inherit the properties. That's my intent, is that the kids inherit it through a trust. Because right now, yes, there's up to $5 million of no inheritance tax when it goes through. But if you put it in a trust, there's a way to avoid that, even if that gets lowered or if it goes away, or if it's worth more than $5 million at the time. So that's my exit strategy, is to make a trust, have my kids in it, and have them inherit it. I've never met an owner of a property who sold one who didn't think, I wish I had that property, and I don't want to have to say that. I've mentioned a couple of times that I might sell one to pay off the debt on the other ones as a strategy that could work for someone else, and one I've considered. Like I tricked the lumberjack landlord and Michael Zuber into giving me like a really deep portfolio deep dive into what my options were just before I retired. And one of the things where you could sell that house and pay off the debt, and it is an option to sell one to take care of the debt on the others. I just don't see me doing it. Tom, when you're ready to be a hard money lender, you can test it out on me. Let's create $1 million. You might not like it, because the reason I would do a hard money lending is because you're going to make a lot of money. If your deal would make you money, sure. But we'll see. So I'll come back up to it. But Evolve Properties LLC, howdy, still don't see that button to push to become a member. A lot of people had to go off of their phone and onto a PC to see the join button. Chester, all-nighter hider, agreed as long as both parties structure it correctly. Loco Eddie, howdy. Wanted to say thank you. Around January, you helped me realize how risky one income stream job truly is. Yesterday, I received my first full month's rent check. Now, wife and I are hunting for number 2. Thank you. Awesome. Congratulations. That's about perfect. Take the time to educate yourself, learn your market, find the right deal. Get that first rent check. Feels weird. Like, I don't know for you if it does, but it still kind of feels weird every time I get the rent check shows up. Weirdest week is the first week of the month. When I worked, everybody at work called it my welfare checks. It was money that came in at the beginning of the month I didn't work for. But my bank account kind of plays vertical pong. It goes rent in, mortgage out, rent in, mortgage out, rent in, mortgage out. Like it just goes up. That's a good feeling. So enjoy that first one. It's not like it gets old hat after this 3rd or 4th month. I mean, I'm years in and still look forward to that week of the month. Keith, howdy. Cost of materials have gone through the roof. Ouch. Yes. Inflation is a real thing. So we had supply chain issues where something cost more because there was less of them to be had, so they could charge a premium. But we created, and not everyone, a couple of people have come at me in the comments when I say this. 80% of our currency we put into motion in the last 2 years. We created 40% in 2020 and 30-something% in 2021 of the larger number. So it's about 80% of our currency, and that's not all cash. That's assets that the Fed purchased to keep on their books, and then stimulus and $120 billion a month being produced and just all this kind of stuff. If there is 4 or 5 times the amount of currency in circulation, it's going to take more currency to buy the stuff. I just did a video last week on why things cost more, using tennis balls as an example. I had Zuber look at it, and he said the only mistake I made was that the transactions made the people whole and profit. Properties LLC, all in a header. It's the join button doesn't seem to be there for everyone for whatever reason. Yes. Chester. That comes from my combination finance, procurement background. I've seen some god-awful contracts, and I've seen some amazingly well put together contracts. Yeah, the only contract that I do not believe in anymore is matrimonial. Tom took back a message to make me lose sleep tonight, to wonder forever and ever what that message was. Christina, mortgage broker. Yes. Dividend Dave. Awesome to see that you're now a member, Chester. Thank you. I appreciate that. Tom, if you don't find the join button on your phone, try the laptop. That's a good background, Chester. Nice. Chester to Dividend Dave, finding out the join button, that was the tough part. Yeah, like I said, it seems to be a YouTube glitch. Please put mortgage broker in the subject line. Yep, so you've got your email in there. I don't see it. So I don't know, Christina, I don't think it posted because it won't do a link. So you got to put like a gap in your email somewhere for it to make the post. Try that again. Or email me and I will pin it in a comment below after the video. All-nighter hider, yes. Avoid probate by private trust structure. Yes, advice I'm taking from the lumberjack landlord and my brother who did that. He did his, I want to say a year or 2 ago. It was like $2,500 to put it all together. REI Stoners. Phil Jackson's book, 11 Rings, can be carried over into real estate as it covers team management and using meditation for clarity and focus. Nice. That was the book, 11 Rings. Buddies, howdy. Where do you see interest rates summer of next year for a refinance? One of the things I'm very careful about is not predicting. I don't have the finance background. I don't have Zuber's education. And until I was 40, so here's an example. Until I was 40, I don't think I understood the difference between Republican and Democrat. I just didn't even know that there was things that they were different about. Two different parties, I don't care. And then I started working at the truck driving school, and legislation started impacting my job. And I started working with legislators, higher ed committee, transportation committee, and I figured out how much politics suck. And then I realized, okay, if someone from this party gets in office, here's my plan. Here's how the school will benefit. If somebody from this party gets in office, here's my plan. Here's how the school will benefit. So instead of saying, buddies, I think interest rates will be 10% by next summer, or I think interest rates will be 4% by next summer, I have a plan for if interest rates go to 10 next summer, here's my strategy. If they go to 4, here's my strategy. Have a plan for all of the contingencies. And then it doesn't matter because no one has the working crystal ball. And much more educated people than us, but definitely than me, are making those guesses too. And losing most times. The thing earlier where somebody said low cost index fund, safest way, because instead of going, I'm going to pick stocks based on all my education on which ones are going to go up, the index fund strategy works better. I do a version when it comes to real estate of my own version of dollar cost averaging. So with stocks, it's a set amount of money on a certain repeated timeline that you're just going to buy stocks. So when stocks are higher, you're buying less. When stocks go lower, you're buying more. That's dollar cost average. My version is real estate is I'm hunting for the great deal that cash flows based on current rents and current rates, not predicting that they'll go down and I can refinance later, not predicting that rents will go up later, like none of the prediction stuff. Great deal now. And then I watch interest rates. In 2020, I refinanced a little less than half of my portfolio because rates went down so low. I had some to refinance. Didn't plan on it. They cash flowed before then. I just got better cash flow later. That was actually something I meant to talk about at the beginning of the video on if you pay off your mortgage, why wouldn't you just buy it in cash? Because when you get the mortgage, you incur loan origination fees, buy down rate fees, closing cost fees for the loan, and then you want to pay it off later. To and fro global. Howdy. I am from the Flat Earth Society. We have people all around the globe who agree with me. Leah here. I know the one mistake. Can't wait to see the video though. Thank you for your great content. Awesome. Travis. Howdy. And howdy to and fro global. When you say get to 4, is that 4 properties or 4 doors? In my mind, it's 4 properties. You buy one 4-plex, it's not going to be as life-changing. It's achievable, but if you get to 4 properties, and that was when my life literally changed. I had a single-family house and 3 duplexes, so 4 properties. At the beginning of this video, I talked about when I got to 4 mortgages, I focused and paid 1 off. I wouldn't do that now, but I did it then because you were only allowed to have 4 in your name. And I didn't understand DSCR and asset-based lending. So there was a reason why I did it that looking back was a mistake. But at the time, like in law enforcement, you make a decision based on the information you have in the moment, not what you find out later. You can't look back and go, okay, well, it's a crime because it wasn't what you thought it was. But in the moment, what you thought it was is what you had to make your decision on. So I had this much cash flow more than when I was a cop, when I had 4 properties. 1 was paid off. So I don't know that it would have been that much if I didn't pay it off. But as a police officer, I was making $1,300 every 2 weeks take home. So $2,600 a month. And when I had 4 properties with 1 paid off, my cash flow, my profit after setting aside and principal, interest, taxes, and insurance was $2,700. Things really changed when I went into the Second House Act though. Yeah, so 4 properties is what we talk about. And it's not you get to 4 and stop, but it's achievable. Focus on 4, get there. Don't worry about the stress of thinking 10, 20, 30 units, 100 properties. Once you get to 4, you'll have a good idea what strategy works in your market, what you have the affinity for. And then your growth after that, you can go, okay, was my goal to grow a massive portfolio or to just do what Dion did and get the cash flow that makes time freedom possible? Trayvon, howdy. How do you feel about Roth IRA? Better than a 401k, but the people making money off of retirement accounts are the ones who manage them. If the average person doesn't have an investing strategy where you can, like with real estate, I'm getting consistently better than 10% cash on cash return now to live on, spend, invest, plus appreciation on 4 or 5 times what I invested because I did a down payment and used a mortgage. Principal paid on every month where tenants are paying off the mortgage, and with tax benefits way better than a retirement account. I'm not going to pay any tax and carry forward losses on profits from rentals. Real estate works better for me. If somebody doesn't invest in real estate, retirement accounts, and they plan on retiring at 59 and a half, sure, go for it. I hate the idea. So I had money locked up in a retirement account because I was maxing it out for the tax benefits before I was investing. And then once I realized the power of investing, I dropped to just doing the match because free money makes sense. I still recommend doing the match for those kind of retirement accounts where you get a match from the company. 2020 happened because I was impacted by COVID, like a lot of people were. I took my money out of the retirement account, and it is now in a triplex making me money. But I continued to put a little, so there's like $11,000 in my retirement account, which is down 24% for the year. That's just what's left after putting in money for the match, and then just the stocks being destroyed this year. That money irritates me. It's behind a paywall. It's my money. I don't like it. So, and with Roth, you can do certain things. You can self-direct retirement accounts. I think it's a really bad idea with real estate. It turns passive income into active income, earned income, not active, earned income. So it's taxed differently. You can't self-manage. Like there's all these things, barriers you put in front when in between you and that money. If you have money in a retirement account, I think the best use for it right now, if you're not going to take it out, is to use it as a reserve. Lenders are going to require that you have some require 3, some require 6 months worth of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance for all of the properties that you own. So as you add properties, that reserve requirement is going to go up. If you have $50,000 in a retirement account, lenders will recognize 50% of that, so $25,000 as a reserve. You don't have to take it out, you don't have to tap it, you don't have to do anything but prove that it's there and that it's seasoned. It's been in there for a few months. That's a good use for a retirement account. If I had the choice now of putting any money into a retirement account, if I was getting the match, sure. Above the match, I wouldn't put anything in there. I would put it to work in real estate because I have found a strategy that works. If you have money in a retirement account, I don't suggest taking it out and buying your first or second rental. Maybe not even your third, but by your third or fourth, when you start to have a reasonable amount of confidence in your ability to get your return and find a deal that cash flows and find and screen and place a tenant, all the stuff that goes with real estate, then maybe take it out and do it. So not in the beginning strategy, but it's what I would do with money if I had it in that retirement now. So like the $11,000 that I have in my retirement account, that's left, if there's any left in January, I'm taking it out. I'm going to pay the 10% penalty. I'm going to pay the taxes because this year I worked up until July. So I have income, and the tax bracket for that retirement money would be where my W-2 income left off. It'll be in that bracket. Next year, I don't have any W-2 income, and I'm going to show a loss with rental profit because of depreciation and write-offs. So I'm going to take that money out of the retirement account. And it's going to be kind of almost my only earned income. So it'll be in the lowest tax bracket there is. Then I'll put it to work in a rental. You can take money out of a retirement account, I think, and avoid the 10% penalty if you're using it to buy your first house. So know the laws on that. Do some research before you commit to that. And it has to be owner occupied. It has to be your first one. You're still going to pay taxes when you take the money out. You're just not going to pay the penalty. That's a 401k. Don't know if that's a Roth. I do know that from everyone I've talked to, Roth is better than 401k, but I only did the 401k for the match. All-nighter hider. That's quite worthy. I don't want my kids taking care of me. I saw how they took care of their pets. It's very true. And I tell them. I also tell my kids they're living, breathing proof I never developed time travel too. So there's that. Chester, all-nighter hider. That's the quote of the month, if not the year. Nice, Chester. Chester, and he spat it out like Superman. Chester, what I realized about rentals, again from Money Master the Game, we're paid in proportion to our service to others. So the more we serve others with housing, the more we're compensated for it. Very true. And beyond the more rentals you have, the more people you serve, the more you make. I learned probably 10 or 15 years ago that the more people you help, just as a general rule, the more people you help, the better your life will be. The quote I saw, and it's probably from Facebook because I'm a child when it comes to social media, is anybody who says money can't make you happy hasn't given away enough of it. Levi, have you considered non-residential real estate? No. Self-storage properties sound nice to me, but the debt structure for residential 1 to 4 is definitely superior and hard to look away from. So that's exactly the reason why I haven't looked at non-residential. I love 30-year or 40-year if I can get it fixed rate debt. No adjustable rates, no loan revaluation period, no balloon payments, none of that kind of stuff. So at some point, maybe if you have enough cash to just buy one of those, but you're buying a business if you do self-storage generally. And commercial confuses me. You drive around any city and find there are commercial buildings that have been empty for 7 years or longer. Why? Imagine a rental being empty for 7 months. What are you doing wrong, right? Let alone year. We put a trucking school campus in a town called Auburn, Washington, where I went and I found a lot that had been a used boat and an RV sales lot. And the grass was taller than me, and I'm not that big. I'm like 5'9". It's like it was huge grass. Fences were knocked down. Floor was rotted out in the building. It had been empty for so many years. They were like, yeah, we'll rent it for almost anything you want. I wouldn't want to own that. I wouldn't mind owning it when it became a really busy place, and now everything rents for a ton. But there was close to a decade where it didn't. All night hire. Levi. First thought I have is residential real estate is necessity and self-storage is is discretionary. Comes down to allocation and risk tolerance. So yes, all-nighter, I agree with that, but I also think that there are some places where there's just such a strong demand. We're a weird nation of storage where people store stuff, but it's the debt structure that stops it for me. Duchess, would you consider renting by the room to be halfway between multiplex and single family, or is it closer to one of those than the other? So I don't think it's very much like single family or multiplex at all. I think it's more like running a bed and breakfast, dealing with interpersonality actions, shared living spaces. Todd Baldwin is killing it. That's his strategy. He buys 5 to 7 bedroom, multiple bathroom properties and rents out by the room. He's got a great strategy, makes a ton of money. Good strategy. A ton of information on Todd Baldwin's channel here on YouTube. I have some roommate situations, but they have one lease. If one of them is late on the rent, they all get evicted. It's not like, okay, your rent is $2,000 and each one of you pays me $500. Your lease is for $500. I don't do that. It's you all are on a lease for $2,000. If it's $1,900 has been paid, the same eviction form is being filed, which does 2 things. One, it helps the tenant who needs rent relief because most rent relief programs won't help you until you have paperwork been filed on you. And 2, it's made me in 10 years never have one later missing rent payment if they know that's the policy. Chester to Trevon. Section 2 of Money Master the Game teaches the secrets of investing. Bottom line, put it in a low-cost index fund and leave it alone. Duchess, which branch of service? I would definitely say service, because if you work in law enforcement and you were in the military before, you learn there's 2 phonetic alphabets, right? The military and then civilian law enforcement. And if you were in the military first, like the Marine Corps, and then you get into a stressful situation in law enforcement, you revert to your original training, and then everybody laughs on the mic. It's not embarrassing at all. Dividend Dave, that's my plan B, Chester. Air Force, nice. If you consider RC, yep. Army RC, nice. And then To and Fro Global became a member. Welcome to the group. We have cookies. The members only live streams are Zoom. And the first comment is the Zoom link. So you can watch the members only live stream, sit back, eat popcorn, do whatever you want. Or you can join the Zoom, interact, ask questions, go through whatever the topic is of the day. And we're doing at least 2 of those a month. Amanda, howdy. Roth IRA, you could take out contributions tax and penalty free after 5 years from opening the account. Feels like a good medium-term way to invest excess reserves. Thoughts? Yes, but I still don't like the idea of giving someone else control and putting a timeline on it. Mathematically, it probably makes sense. I'm just anti. Retirement accounts and insurance are the same. It's an industry that sells a product that makes money off of people who don't know how it works. So if you educate yourself and you know the strategy and you know what the fees are and you know what the timelines are, and you have a plan to not use that money for more than 5 years, sure. The average person, no. Most people don't know that they're paying 6 figures over the life of a retirement account in fees to the people managing that account. So average person that doesn't invest uses a retirement account. Person who invests shouldn't. But if you educate yourself on how it works and you know the system and you know the timeline, you know that nothing's going to change. Because I've worked at a couple places where we had retirement accounts, and I usually end up in a management role. Like the truck driving school, I was the president for the last, I was there 13 years, like last 8 years, I was the president of the company. Everybody tapped their retirement for moving, for a vacation, for a divorce, for a kid in the family. Like, no, I was going to say one person retired with a retirement account, but Dan emptied his stuff out, put it in a rental. So he did what I did in 2020. Yeah, so if you have the self-control, discipline, and ability to educate yourself, sure. I don't. I'm lazy. I want to save a down payment, buy a rental, put a tenant in it, longest lease possible, longest fixed rate debt possible. Don't think about it. Introduce them to the handyman after a bit. So even repairs are, I see the texts, but that's about it. All-nighter hider. I have always, since a kid, wondered the same thing. How can this building be empty for so long? There's got to be a cost somewhere. Yeah, your triple nets don't go away just because it's not occupied. And again, thank you to the membership. Chester, I'm glad you mentioned helping others, Dion. I also recommend the Go Giver by Bob Bird and John David Mann. Awesome. That's just a great answer. Chester, welcome to To and Fro. Awesome. Thank you both. Levi, great point. All-nighter hider, definitely one I've considered. It feels way more volatile. You learned the military alphabet from the Tide books in Alaska. Nice, all-nighter. Cool. So we went for 2 hours. I think that's good on a live stream. I'm not driving anywhere, so I have a lot of water left. Stephan, howdy. Hey, Dion, I've been a subscriber for a month, and you have provided a lot of useful info on rental properties. I'm wondering, is there a minimum yield on the cash-on-cash return you look for? Great question. The answer is yes and no. And this is actually something I got from Paula Pant, who has the community afford anything premise of you can afford anything, but not everything. She talked about not liking the yield metric because and so the way I like to do it, Stephen, the Cliff Notes version is learn your market, study it for 60 to 90 days. This is right out of the book, One Rental at a Time by Michael Zuber. Once you know what an average deal is, so if you can find 3 to 5% average yields in your area, then you want to look for 5s or 6s. So you want to beat average. In my area, I was able to find 7 to 8%. So I shot for 10. So all of my deals so far hit 10. Last couple of years have been kind of weird. I was willing to go down to 9 or 8. Haven't done it, but I would adjust based on what average is in your area, try to beat it. But here's the point Paula made. What if you use a VA loan? 0 money down, no closing costs. Maybe wrap the closing costs up into the loan. So you walk away from the closing table with a check sometimes. And then you rent it out for $1 in profit a year. That's an infinite return. right? It's beyond 100% return on your money because it didn't cost you anything and you're getting $1 a year. Is running and managing a property for $1 a year worth your time, your risk, your effort? So I invest in a high cost of living area where a 10% cash on cash return is so far always at least more than $400 per door. So I don't have a minimum in my area, but if I was going to invest in another market, I would think that $100 per door per property is a minimum, but I would also calculate yield, and yield is, and you might know this because of the way you worded your question, but just in case there's somebody here who doesn't know how the question was worded, annual profit divided by cost to acquire. That's your yield. And a minimum per door of 100 per door. So in my area, I've always started out over $400 per door. Average now is, I have one paid off property that kind of skews the numbers. So the average per door is probably like 900, but I'm making more than $1,000 per unit in profit. Because the element that's missing from everybody's big concern in, will I get enough cash flow? Will my yield be good enough? Is time. Add 2 to 5 years to owning a rental, with mortgages staying the same or refinancing if rates go down or rents going up. And it's just, I think all of my properties now are above a 20% cash on cash return. They were between 10 and 17%. My best was 17. Most were right around 10, 10 to 11 the first year. But by second, third, fourth, fifth year, income snowball is a thing. And it's not just on how many sources of income you have, but each source of income, it goes up or has been going up. So I hope that helps. All night hider. If my flask, if you ever see my flask in the videos, that has tequila flavored water in it that I got from my daughter. Levi, one of us, to and fro. Nice. Julie, I always think those empty commercial buildings are tax write-offs for money laundering. It's entirely possible. I think some of the businesses that are running are doing that too. Levi, Dion, you could do a Roth conversion ladder to get your 401k money out without paying the penalty. Right, but if I put it into Roth and then I use it for real estate, unless I'm after the 5 years, which I don't know that would be because I emptied it out into 2020, so that money hasn't been in there for 5 years. If it's in a Roth and you want to self-direct to do real estate, it turns passive income into earned income, which again loses all the benefits. It can't be self-managed. Like, I would rather pay the taxes, pay the penalty, walk away with my money, not have to learn anything new. You're right, Levi. There is a way to do it, and that the correctly educated person who puts the effort into it can do that. That's not me though. I hate the whole system. I know the system is there as an incentive program to get people to work for a company long term. It's a retention program. And so think about this. Let's say you're looking at two companies. One has a 401k program and one does not. Which one do you think you get paid more at? You're getting paid the same at each one. One lowers their amount of compensation a little so they can do a match to keep your compensation the same as to the cost of the employer. So a lot of people, we have the truck driving school and we started a retirement account program because it would draw people and we needed to find employees, and it kept employees. And I'm like, this sucks. This is the wrong thing for our staff to do with their money, but it's how you get them to work here. Because I got a bad taste in my mouth about it. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's bad for me. Hasta la vista, REI. Stephen, yes, thank you for the detailed answer. Awesome, cool, thank you. Chester, gotta say, Dion, that sounds a lot like time in the market beats timing the market. It does sound a lot like it. It's does sound a lot like that. But even better than that, even if you could time the market, then add time to the market, and it still gets better. Theo, have you done any seller finance deals? I found a listing on MLS. I'll need to negotiate with seller's agent. Should I use a realtor? So I make a seller's finance offer with every offer that I make now. I have not done any. So far, all of my deals have been from the MLS with a conventional lending. I'm not opposed to seller financing. I just haven't found it. You have to find a couple of things that need to work out. One, they have to have enough equity so that They don't have a mortgage that you have to take care of. If they have a mortgage, you're going to have to write your down payment to cover the mortgage, or you're going to have to do something like the 50-40-10 thing where you get a 50% mortgage from a lender that takes care of the mortgage that they have on the place. Then they carry the note for 40, you pay 10%. So the seller walks away with 60% to take care of the thing. The other thing to consider is your down payment needs to include the amount for the agent. So not having an agent doesn't save you any money. Generally, when somebody is listing a property, the listing agent is going to get 6% or 5.5% or whatever. If they do both sides of the transaction, if you don't use an agent, yes, they might be more motivated to go with you because they get both ends, they bookend the commission. You still need to have a down payment that covers any amount of mortgage they have left and the agent fees. If you have an agent, the listing agent is going to get their 3%, and then your agent is going to get 3 or 2.5% or whatever the structure of that is in the contract. So the cost to you is the same. There is a little bit of a motivation factor with the listing agent to go with yours, but remember, they're just kind of whispering in the seller's ear. They're not making the decision to sell or not sell. And some agents are going to say that seller financing is illegal because they're uneducated and they think that it's a buyer trying to get around having an agent fee. So your pitch, when I do a seller's, seller financed offer, I make sure that first sentence is, it is my intention that the real estate agents get their fee from my down payment. Blah, 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 blah. Go through everything else. All the benefits to the seller, the reasons you want to do it. Stephen, if you email me, anybody who wants it, I have a seller finance letter that I send off. This is like the meat of the email that goes in the middle on how I kind of pitch it to the sellers. The one time I got it accepted, it came back and they had a little bit bigger mortgage than I was willing to do. And I tried the 50-40-10, but they didn't have enough equity for that. So it kind of fell through. So I make an offer, seller financed and conventional with each offer. Levi, super and mega backdoor Roth IRA. Absolutely. All-nighter hider. Many wealthy people have at least 8 different streams of passive income from several different sources. They do. Once they're wealthy. And this will be the thing that I wrap up with, and we'll close out for it tonight. I want to thank everybody who hung out with me every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific. I will do these live streams, even when traveling, and sometimes the Wi-Fi dies on me. But Warren Buffett talks about diversification and how important it is. Kevin O'Leary, the Mr. Wonderful, talks about no more than 5% in any asset, no more than 20% in any asset class. And they talk about being diversified is very important if you're wealthy, otherwise you could lose it all. They're right. Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's partner of decades, right? And Charlie Munger was they were at a panel presentation. Warren Buffett was talking about diversification, and Munger said, don't do that. Kind of got a dirty look from Warren. But Munger goes, look, you focus on one asset class, you master it to become wealthy. Once you're wealthy, now you diversify to protect your wealth. So you're absolutely right, all-nighter hider, that a lot of wealthy people have several streams of income. I have 7+ myself, right? That's not what it took to get here. What it took to get here was focusing on real estate, buy and hold real estate rentals until the income snowball kicked in. Like, I had side hustles to turn income to invest. I'm still not quite there. I've about a little over 5 million in gross value, a little over 3 million in net worth, 1.8 million in debt. Not big enough for me to diversify yet. I think if I hit like the 10 million mark, not my plan, but if I do, then I might go, 1% in crypto, 5% in stocks, right? Like, I'll look at some other sources too. But if I did that early on, if you chase 5 rabbits, you will starve. Levi, true, I wasn't considering self-directing. Let the money season and then spend it as you see fit. I can understand wanting to just get out though and being willing to pay to do it. Awesome. Tom, live stream. Thank you. Keith, smash that like button. Thank you. Appreciate it. Awesome. I hope you guys have a week full of awesome. I'm probably going to do a live stream Friday morning just because, like a random midday live stream Friday. That's my plan. I might have the lumberjack landlord on, depending on what he's got going on. And then I'm probably going to do a members only live stream Friday And I hope to see some of you there. Awesome. All right. Thank you all so much. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.